There is a truth that very few people have the courage to say openly. Being chosen is not always a blessing that fills a person with happiness. Sometimes it can be an unspoken but overwhelming burden. Is it a coincidence that I am sending you this message right now? No, it is not. It is one of the divine laws of the universe and heaven. Yes, the law of attraction. You feel extremely lucky that I am sending you this message, don't you? Before moving on to the message, please like the video so that this message can reach other people, dear soul. You must also receive and accept the message with love. If you write, "I received and accepted it with love" in the comments and seal it with 777, you will maintain the balance of giving and receiving. Don't forget to stay tuned and subscribe for our other messages. Says Archangel Michael. Now we can slowly move on to the message. The phone rang for you. There is a sign on it. You are carrying a mission that no one around you can understand. Still, something is breaking beneath the surface. You are a source of illumination, but your own flame is smoldering. While you pour into other people, who is it that replenishes you? Who is on their knees for you, despite the fact that you perform prayers for everyone? This is the most perilous portion of the situation. Even if the world praises your strength, no one is able to notice the cracks that are hiding behind the grin. The invisible forces that are sapping the energy of those who have been chosen are being brought to light today, which is something that no one discusses. Neither via failure nor through sin, but rather by tiredness that never goes undetected. Due to the fact that you are weak, you are not coming apart. You've been trying to keep everything together for far too long by yourself, and now you're losing your composure. Neither of these is a breakdown. It's a gradual increase. And the end of it all comes today. Therefore, if you believe that this message is already cutting through the noise, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and leave a 99 in the comments section, because the number 9 represents the end of one's spiritual journey. In addition, something that has been left incomplete in your spirit is going to be completed today. Let's get started. Even after entering a room full of people, you still get the sensation of being a ghost. However, this is not because you do not exist. Rather, it is because no one actually sees what is dwelling beneath your complexion. You communicate, you have a sense of humor, and you carry out your duties. On the other hand, you are gradually losing your identity. Die without making a noise, rather die quietly. This quiet is a sign that you are wearing your name. This kind of solitude is not the kind that fosters healing. This is not a holy pause at all. In order to trim and shape those who have been selected, God will occasionally use a quietness that is not so attractive. Certainly, this is not the same thing. This is a form of emotional exile that goes under the name of independence. The strong are the ones who are incarcerated in this kind of prison, the kind that comes with invisible chains and plaudits from the outside. Mostly due to the fact that when you are chosen, people anticipate that you will be fine, that you will be anointed, that you will be the one who has answers, and that you will be the light. Then again, even light requires rest. Even fighters sustain wounds. Even prophets require a place to rest their heads occasionally. The fact that your power can occasionally become your curse is something that no one will ever tell you. This is not because it is a hoax. Rather, it is because others have ceased inquiring about your well-being. Because of your strength, they have developed an addiction to it, and you have learnt how to perform it. You are now wearing your anguish as if it were armor. You smile and laugh as if everything is fine. You repeat scripture while your spirit cries out for a way out of this predicament. One of the most unfortunate aspects is that you start to trust the performance as well. You are able to persuade yourself that if you were to require assistance, it would make you less wise, less spiritual, and less mature. As a result, you resist. You choose to ignore your sorrow. You dull your sense of need. For the sake of being used by God, you have disconnected yourself from your humanity. On the other hand, being chosen does not indicate that one is unbeatable. There was never a time when God made you numb. He commanded you to obey His directives. Additionally, obedience encompasses honesty. The vulnerability is included in it. A part of it is expressing, "I need help," without feeling ashamed. because it is not fighting that is responsible for the deaths of so many chosen ones. Isolation is a form of strength that is disguised as weakness. Those who have the perception that they are too important to be cared for are the ones who are silently suffering. Nevertheless, here is the truth. It was never intended for you to travel by yourself. 2 by 2, Jesus dispatched his followers to follow him. Elijah desired to have Elisha. This was a must for David. It was even Moses who had Aaron speak on his behalf. You too are in need of someone. However, this requirement does not disqualify you. It offers evidence of your humanity. Therefore, allow me to pose a daring question to you. Who makes sure you are okay? Who is able to make sense of your quiet and see beyond the anointing? In times when your calling seems to crush you, who is there to hold you? If your response is no one, then you should pay close attention. Breaking the quiet is the only way to prevent yourself from being broken by it. Mostly due to the fact that when selected ones collapse, they do not always produce a noise. Slowly, they vanish from view. They gradually disappear from their own lives. If someone does notice, it is frequently too late to do something about it. On the other hand, you are neither unreachable or disappearing from this location. By sending you this message, heaven is demonstrating that it is intervening in your quiet. To add insult to injury, this is just the beginning of what has been buried. Due to the fact that there is something that is even more perilous than being alone. What you begin to believe about yourself is what you begin to believe when there is no one around to remind you of who you are. What's more, that is the next destination on our agenda. Stay here with me. It all begins with a quick glance. A single scroll, a single photo, a single post, or even a single seemingly insignificant occasion might suddenly cause your heart to be filled with questions that you did not ask for. Why do they have a great deal of followers? What is it that gives them such a self-assured, blessed, and ahead of schedule appearance? Why is it that their prayers are being answered more quickly? What causes their voice to reverberate more loudly than yours, which seems to be barely audible in the void of the room? There was no reason for you to seek for this weight. Even if you did not bring this guilt upon yourself, it is now weighing heavily on your chest like a stone. You begin evaluating your success using the ruler that belongs to another person. Moreover, that ruler was never intended to be used by your hands. In comparison, there is no knocking. It manages to slip in, but it does not scream. It utters a word, concealable, astute, and deadly. The adversary, on the other hand, does not have to undermine your goals. It is sufficient for him to get you to question it. Because if he is successful in convincing you that your pace is too slow, that your journey is too quiet, and that your obedience is too obscure, then he will be able to convince you to give up the very thing that God has specifically given you, your obedience. Listen to what I have to say. It wasn't that your calling was supposed to go viral. The purpose of it was to be accomplished. In addition, fulfillment is frequently unnoticeable, unrecognized, and personal. Comparing things, however, causes you to forget that. A rewiring of your instincts occurs. It leads you to believe that visibility is equivalent to value, that acclaim is same to anointing, and that platform is equivalent to purpose. However, those that were selected were never given the opportunity to impress. The call to impact was given to them. In addition, some of the most significant effects are not audible, concealed, or visible to the outside world, but heaven is well aware of them. As you can see, comparison can alter your perception. Your attention is drawn to things that appear to be quick, loud, and shiny. However, the breath of God is not present in everything that flashes. A divine light is not present in every spotlight. There are some things that are little more than noise that is disguised as success. Moreover, if you pursue it, you will lose the rhythm of the assignment that you are working on. As soon as you begin competing in someone else's race, you give up on your own goal of reaching the finish line. If you strive to reach a deadline that God did not give you, you will exhaust yourself before making it. There will be things that you will pray for that were never a part of your portion. You will be envious of mantles that, if placed on your shoulders, would be so heavy that they would crush you. And what's worse is that you'll start to feel resentment toward the precise route that was designed specifically for your soul. Permit that to sink in. You will feel resentment toward your own blessing because you have compared it to the accomplishments of another person. That is the problem with making comparisons. There is more to it than just envy. It has to do with erosion. Your understanding of divine timing, your thankfulness, and your clarity will all suffer as a result. In the absence of those things, one's sense of purpose begins to deteriorate from the inside out. Nevertheless, you were not called to decay. It was a call for you to stand up. Now allow me to bring to your attention something holy. There is no disruption to your schedule. You do not move at a leisurely speed. It does not matter what road you take. Your spirit is the inspiration for its creation. It will also not have the appearance of anything else. The womb of purpose is a peaceful place. It is not uncommon for the most magnificent things that God has in store for you to not come with a countdown. They are going to arrive with silence. Until one day they explode into destiny, they will continue to process obscurity. Quit scrolling, stop comparing yourself to others, and stop thinking that God has forgotten about you. He is preparing you. This preparation appears to have nothing to do with popularity. When He ultimately exposes what He is constructing in you, the people to whom you once compared yourself will wonder how you managed to accomplish it without making any noise, without taking any shortcuts, and without making any compromises. However, you will realize that you did not seek applause. You were pursuing obedience. It is precisely this that renders those who have been chosen invincible. However, if you think that this is profound, you should wait until you understand what occurs when you confuse being busy with having a purpose. The following topic is going to be about that. I can assure you that it is more relevant to your everyday life than you might imagine. Your phone makes a buzzing sound. There is a fire in your email. The meetings tend to pile up. The calls continue to come in. From dawn till midnight, the calendar is jam-packed with events. What's more, you still have the impression that you haven't accomplished enough. Moving, executing, fixing, and delivering are all things that you do constantly. Everyone is in need of you because of your hard work and the fact that you are lauded for your production. On the other hand, your spirit is asking you, when was the last time you actually heard me? You used to be able to sense God in places where there was complete silence. It is now so loud that you can hardly hear Him over the din. Initially, the mission was straightforward. It originated from a point of submission, one of obedience, and of profound relationship with the divine. On the other hand, performing began to take the place of being at some point in time. As a result of your work, you gained a reputation, but you lost the ability to just exist in His company. In addition, here is the horrifying reality. Sin is not the cause of the majority of those who are selected by God. Due to the fact that they have mistaken their identity with their work, they are lagging behind since they have overscheduled themselves. They have been taught that having a full calendar is equivalent to having a full life, but in truth, having a busy schedule often means having an empty soul. You weren't designed to function on fumes around the clock. You were not called to be the answer to everyone's problems while ignoring your own sense of integrity. The more people compliment your grind, however, the more you forget that grinding is something that machines do, and not something that humans do. It was never intended for the mission to be expensive for you. Then let that land. Because it is not a lack of love for God that is killing many of those who have been selected. There is not enough time to experience God. You preach the importance of rest, but you don't actually practice it. Even though you teach stillness, you evade it. While you are telling other people to take a break, your own heart is beating on automatic. And this is something that the adversary enjoys doing, because if he is unable to entice you with darkness, he will drown you in activity. He would murmur, "Keep going. They need you. Don't stop. You'll lose momentum. Rest later. Just one more task." And all of a sudden, the altar transforms into a stage. When you have a timetable that you believe to be sacred, the silent space becomes a checklist, and your soul becomes a victim of that schedule. But here is something that nobody tells you. No, God does not bless exhaustion. You were never asked to have a performance. He requested that you be steadfast. A state of anarchy is not conducive to enduring. Now take a deep breath. On a spiritual level as well as physically. Due to the fact that your compliance is not evaluated based on production. It is measured in terms of closeness. And rush hour is not the time for relationships to develop. Are you aware of the stakes that are involved here? In the event that you continue in this manner, you will start to mix mobility with advancement. You will come to believe that a day that is crammed with activities is a day that is purposeful. However, your spirit will rebel at some point in the future. Your body is going to break. Your feelings are going to disintegrate. In addition, what was once perceived as divine momentum will begin to feel like suffocating with time. One day, you will awaken and find that you have assisted everyone else in having a better relationship with God. That being said, you are no longer able to sense Him because your soul has transformed into a machine and your fire is barely a flicker. But here's where things get interesting. To be called back, you do not need to crash your vehicle. You are now able to pause. Now is the time to reset. Restoration is an option that can be chosen above recognition. The fact that you are more weary does not mean that you are more spiritual. Because you agreed to everything, you are not more holy than you were before. However, the fact that your name is everywhere does not make you more effective. When you are complete, you pose a greater threat to things that are dark. And the fact of the matter is that if you continue to feed the mission while starving your soul, you will eventually come to detest the very thing that you were born to carry. Consequently, you should inquire of yourself, when was the last time you sat in silence? Not because you were required to, but because your spirit need air to replenish itself. Mostly due to the fact that what is going to happen next demands your spirit to be rooted rather than scattered. And in the following section, we are going to discuss the silent erosion that occurs when discernment begins to weaken, as well as the ways in which even benefits can become traps if you are not truly connected to the source. Stay put and don't leave. There are certain doors that are not divine. Every yes is not a sacrosanct answer. Additionally, not every voice that praises you is sent with the intention of elevating you. However, this is what makes this situation really risky. The ability to exercise discernment does not vanish when you are fatigued, desperate, or in need of some validation. As it dims. In addition, that modest fading is one of the most dangerous dangers that the selected ones face. Not due to the fact that it is loud, but rather because it is quiet. And the place where falsehood flourishes is in quiet. To tell you the truth, you were really sharp when you initially started out in your chosen field. This spirit of yours was vigilant. When compared to personal ambition, divine timing was clearly distinguishable from human ambition. You were able to detect when anything was not in alignment, even if it appeared to be in perfect alignment on the surface. But you are exhausted at this point, tired of having to wait. I am sick and tired of being ignored. I am sick and tired of wondering whether or not the promise will remain. And in the midst of that exhaustion, something changes. What was once a resounding no gradually begins to take on the appearance of a maybe. And after that, it may perhaps evolve into movement. It wasn't because God was leading you. Rather, it was because your spirit decided it could no longer take the stillness. It is at this point when discernment begins to seep out. You give up listening to the quiet voice of the people and instead focus your attention on the loud voice of the public sector. You start to take advantage of possibilities that appear to be predetermined but actually feel like a diversion. The pursuit of platforms is more important than presence. In place of peace, you put your faith in flattery. While this is going on, something that is buried deep within starts to come apart. Due to the fact that the adversary is strategic. He is well aware that he does not have to force you to fall. The only thing he needs to do is divert your attention in the wrong direction. He has no need to cause you to become sinful. The only thing he needs to do is convince you to accept something that appears to be sufficiently near to your calling. Yes, it is the snare. It is not terrible. It's really close to being correct. It is the opportunity that will make you feel excited, but will progressively destroy your center. It is the false calling, the fake blessing, and the opportunity. Also, this is the most horrifying part of the story. As your ability to judge diminishes, even your gifts become potentially harmful. You can begin to use your anointing to construct something that God has never instructed you to construct. Through the employment of your influence, you have the ability to attract people to a version of yourself that is no longer even genuine. It is possible to preach from a place of performance rather than presence, and the audience will applaud your words. However, your spirit will shed tears because you are aware, on some level, that you left the tranquility too soon. It appears that you have stopped communicating with the person who bestowed upon you the mantle in the first place. You allow the constraints of production to take precedence over the integrity of your process. It was your intention to be of service, but now you are feeling exhausted because, in the absence of discernment, your talent has turned into an idol. Your speed quickens to a racing pace. Your way forward becomes less obvious. As time goes on, your spirit will eventually grow numb. However, here is what you really must hear. The chosen ones are required to exercise discretion at all times. It is not a luxury on a spiritual level. It is a matter of survival. Because the distinction between mobility and misalignment is discernment, it is important to have it. Transitioning between spiritual pollution and development, as well as between legacy and exhaustion. Therefore, if you sense that you are sinking, you should return. Get back to the state of silence. Prayer that is not about performance should be brought back into focus. Bring yourself back to a tranquility that is not void, but rather holy. Because it is only in the stillness that you can once again hear the genuine voice. The voice that does not flatter you, but rather influences who you are. You are not rushed by something, but rather you are rooted. Rather than distracting you, that helps define who you are. A different platform is not required for you. An additional invitation is not required of you. You require unambiguity. You must achieve alignment. Your bones are dry, and you need to hear the sound of God's breath passing over them and breathing fresh direction. Due to the fact that your next yes is not solely about the opportunity. Leaving a legacy is key. Maintaining your position in the path that was specifically mapped out for your soul is the key. The one that appears to be appealing to the world, but ultimately leads nowhere. If you are experiencing a burning sensation within you at this very moment, it is not too late to take a moment to pause, reset, and recalibrate your discernment. Mostly due to the fact that the next step in your life is too sacred to be dealt with in a manner that is spiritually confused. But what if I told you that even when you discover clarity, there is still one more quiet killer, and it is the one that no one ever expects because it disguises itself as obedience? What would you say to that? Next, we have to make our way there. Additionally, it could be the reason for the exhaustion that you have never been able to identify. It does not make known its existence. In your spirit, there is no collapse, no dramatic crash. Rather, there is a delicate fading, a creeping leak that is entirely silent. Although you are still able to function, you have lost the ability to feel. You maintain your presence. You are a teacher. You are in charge. You may pray. You are on stage. On the other hand, you started doing it on autopilot at some point in time. The reason for this is not that you are a fake, but rather that you are empty and that you have mastered the art of performing with a flame that has been extinguished. This is the burnout that is not visible. The kind that does not appear to be a crisis. It appears to be one of consistency. That is precisely what makes it such a risky endeavor. Because people all over the world continue to applaud. People are still looking for your advice. The root of your gift is suffering from withering, but the fruit of your gift is still appearing. There was a time when you could feel the presence of God filling your chest. In the past, you would wake up with a burning desire, but now it feels like a memory. Now that you are awake, you feel pressure. Instead of pursuing a purpose, you are simply surviving the calling that has been placed upon you. When it comes to invisible burnout, this is a lie. You are under the impression that you must still be aligned because you are still performing production. On the other hand, performance is production that lacks presence. Moreover, performance that is devoid of power is a prison. It is not because you are exhausted that you are failing. Let that question settle before you ask yourself, is this still God? Or is this just momentum? You are exhausted because you have not stopped to ask yourself that question. The reason for this is that rebellion is not always the cause of burnout. There are times when it is the result of obedience without intimacy, of saying yes to the mission but saying no to your own soul. In addition, here is the secret truth. It was never God's intention for you to not have access to fire. It was never intended for your gifting to take the place of your grounding. Your influence was never intended to overshadow the closeness you possess. Availableness and faithfulness are frequently confused by those who are chosen. On the other hand, being easily accessible at all times is not a spiritual badge. It is a wound on the soul that is waiting to become more severe. It is impossible to pour things out of an altar that has not been rebuilt. If you are secretly pleading for air, you will not be able to bring others back to life. Furthermore, the most terrifying aspect is that no one notices it because you are still effective. You continue to be productive. You have not yet left. On the other hand, you are aware, on a more fundamental level, that you are moving further and further away from the fire that once brought you to life. And yet, despite the fact that you may be more respected than you have ever been before, you have never felt more numb than you do right now. But God is aware of everything. Beyond the sermons, beyond the schedules, and beyond the confident manner in which you present yourself in public, He sees deeper. There is no condemnation in His tone of voice. That is the call. I'm calling you from at home, to return to the location where the fire was first started. Now we return to silence. It's time to give up. To return to the tears that you never shed because you were so preoccupied with assisting other people. You do not require something else to do. Another assignment is not something you require. I need you to take a seat and be held. You don't require any additional applause. More presence is required of you. That is not the presence of people, but rather the presence of God. Rest is not rebellion. Healing is not selfish. Stillness is not lazy. It is survival. You were never meant to burn for others while letting your own flame die out. You were never called to be a martyr of momentum. You were never anointed to die in the name of excellence. You are not a machine. You are a soul, a vessel, a heart. And that heart needs care, not just calling. And if your inner world has gone quiet, if the flame feels faint, if your prayers feel mechanical, it's not too late to return. Due to the fact that burnout may appear to others as invisible. Yet God is aware of it. Moreover, He is not irate. He does not feel dissatisfied. There is a waiter, waiting for the restoration to take place, holding out for a rekindling. The version of you that was never intended to survive this calling in pieces is ready to be renewed for a fresh beginning. Therefore, if you are hearing this, if your heart is thumping, and if your chest is squeezing because this is you, you should not try to push it away. Try not to accept the numbness as usual. You shouldn't baptize the exhaustion. And be sure that this is not simply another moment that you choose to neglect because the next step in your life requires fire, not fumes, completeness, not bustle, presence, not pressure. Not only that, but there is one more reality that you really must know. In conclusion, there is one more revelation that will bring everything into sharper focus. It is not yet over with us. Everything will be different after the final part. Stay here with me. If this message has struck a chord deep within your being, it is not a coincidence. Intervening is what it is. It is a dream come true to enter your history and say, enough pretending, enough pushing, and enough bleeding in silence. You were never intended to carry this burden by yourself. It was never intended for you to shine brightly for other people while you were fading away on the inside. Having a calling that was supposed to give you life was never intended to cause you to pass away slowly under the weight of that calling. You are not a feeble person. You are exhausted. It is not a lost cause. You have been adored. You have not quite lost your way. At this very moment, you are on the verge of starting over. Also, this is not the conclusion. A divine beginning, a holy interruption, and a sacred confrontation with the version of you that has forgotten your worth, but has never lost your fire, are all things that are happening right now. You are being called back today, right at this very moment. The The performance is not the focus. The presence, not the pressure, was the focus of attention. Please get back to your core. Come back to your breathing. To return to the voice of your own spirit whispering, I'm still here. I'm not done. I still believe. This is not the collapse of your belief system. Your reconstruction is presented here. There is no burnout on your part. The rebirth of you has begun. You are not simply selected to carry out. You were selected to be in this position. To be complete, to have a sense of stability, and to be completely alive. Feel that, and then take a deep breath. Your soul is awakening at that moment. That's your flame appearing to flicker once more. Yes, you are in favor of mending rather than hiding. Moreover, I challenge you to type it in the comments section right now. I have decided to heal rather than hide. Acknowledge it. Form it into a solemn vow. Allow the algorithm to reflect your decision from different time periods, so that darkness can see it. The heavens should mark it, because you are not going to return to the state of burnout this time. This is not a case of you trying to be liked. Trying to fit in does not mean you are ignoring your discomfort. You are on the mend. You are making things better. The parts of yourself that you had to give up in order to survive are being reclaimed by you. You do not merely serve as a vessel. You serve as the blaze. This message is about you. By virtue of your skin, scars, and sacred strength, you are the manifestation of God's movement. Burn once more, breathe once more, and take another breath. It is not necessary for the world to have another flawless performer. It requires a warrior who is present, a vessel that has been healed, and a chosen individual who is anchored. From this moment forward, you will walk in power, walk in peace, and never again walk in quiet.